Hello everybody, welcome back. My name is Stefan and today we'll be covering war intel and specifically how you can gather way more than you probably think you can. In this video I'll cover the two main branches of war intel, the legitimate and the sort of buggy. I'll start with the legitimate stuff. So let's go ahead and cover some sensors first and foremost. Sensors and sensor range are your basic intel gathering tools. Every single ship and station has their own sensors on them. And so even with your basic outposts, you'll be able to have recon on the enemy stations. Specifically, you know of every object out in space, and also the surface of planets if there are any. Unfortunately, with just pure sensors, you cannot tell what kind of modules are present at a starbase, and so you'll have to wait until a later part of this video where I actually cover it. With sensor range, you also have access to just looking at the enemy ship designs, and with this, you can potentially build up a counter to the enemy fleet. For example, if the enemy is using lasers heavily, you can build a bunch of shields on your ships, and they'll be less effective against you, and you'll be more effective against them because they won't damage you, and you will. Also, sensor range is calculated in a way that if you have a sensor range of 2, for example, on this system, it will give you recon over this system and also the adjacent system. So basically, you know, sensor range -1 hyperlanes ahead. And for example, if Uran Tok over here has a sensor range of 3, it will cover pretty much everything within the near vicinity within 2 hyperlanes. This can be very useful considering how you can actually build a module on your stations to increase the sensor range by 2. And this module is called the listening post. Now this is way more useful in multiplayer games rather than AI because AI is kind of dumb and players are more tricky, so you might want to build this thing because knowing where your enemy is 2 systems ahead will give you from 200 to 60 days to act, and that is a long while. You can build a bunch of corvettes in that time span or move your fleet. Since sensor range is exerted by every single ship, including science ships, you're able to combine this with experimental subspace navigation, and you could potentially use your science ships as scouts. I've generally found that if I'm playing against a person, they don't bother to go ahead and destroy the science ships, and even if they do, you can easily build one up and send one in. You don't even have to have the scientist on the ship for it to provide the sensor data. I would recommend you do it because the sensor range from all the science ships in the enemy territory could mean the difference between a victory and a defeat. Now, as I mentioned before, there is no way of determining what kind of a starbase the enemy has, and for that you have to zoom in, look closer, and check out the appearance of the station. Every single module has its own sprite on the station, and every kind of station, well, such as mammalian, reptilian, avian, etc., have their own sprites for the modules. However, you only need to know one sprite, the shipyard, and so I'll demonstrate it for every single empire. First and foremost, let's start off with fungoid. Fungoid stations seem to have their modules at the bottom, and the shipyard looks like this. You can recognize it by the fact that it has a screen right here, and ships are probably going to be coming out of that screen. Arthropoid have their modules on the stations on the side, and as you can see here, their shipyard looks something like this thing. As you see here, there's ample space for a ship to come out of it, and yeah. With the reptilian empires, their stations are located somewhere on the side, and if you see this thing, 3 rods and a nice square for a ship to come out of, that is a shipyard. Now these are mammalians, and they're actually kind of special. Their shipyard is pretty much half the size of their normal station, and it's easily recognizable by its box shape and these a bunch of glowing rods coming across it. And this is what a molluscoid shipyard looks like. This thing right over here. It is similar to the fungoid one since there's a shield of sorts blocking the actual shipyard within, and there's a place for the ship to come out of. And now this is the avian shipyard right over here. Looks kind of weird. I don't know how you build a ship in it, but that's what birds do, I guess. And now, only by knowing 6 shipyard designs, you can now figure out what pretty much every single station has in terms of modules. Stations with gun batteries can be very easily distinguished by the fact that they have increased military power compared to all the other stations, and also by the fact that their modules have little turrets on them. Really cute little turrets. Everything else will be a resource replicator if you're a machine empire, or a trading hub if you're organic. And these are usually found in systems with planets in them, and you pretty much don't need to fear anything from them because they're harmless. All they do is produce energy credits, and if you're running low on energy, you can potentially come in and take out some trading hubs of the enemy empire and benefit greatly. The reason why shipyards specifically are important is because they are the #1 priority target in a war. Because the thing is, if the enemy can't make any ships, they can't attack you. Building a new shipyard takes 180 days, and if you take out the main shipyards of an enemy empire, they'll be crippled for at least a couple years until they can get another shipyard going. And by that time, you should be able to capture that one just as well. The next important thing during a war to know is where the enemy ships are heading and what they're going to do. To figure this out, you can simply click on the enemy fleet and it will tell you what system it's moving to. The locations are generally systems that are nearby, and so you can easily check them out. However, if the system is not anywhere nearby and you don't know where it's located, you can search for the system. You can do that in the bottom right corner of the screen. There's a search button right here, or you can potentially press F and it'll pull it up. So for example, if I don't know where Amostes is, I type it in and click on it to jump to it in the center of the screen. Now, knowing where the enemy ships are actually leads into the more buggy part of the video. For example, if I have a fleet selected and just let the game run, even let the fleet attack another station and let me lose sensor range of it, it'll still be selected and I'll know where it's heading. So for example, I know that it's attacking the Shashamar station, and indeed it's going ahead and attack it. Since this information bar does not actually disappear over time, I can potentially track this fleet indefinitely. Of course, if I select any of my own ships, including a science ship, this will go away. So if you're tracking an enemy fleet, be careful to not order any of your ships around. There's also actually a way to check out all the modifiers of the enemy fleets by just popping over to a station and checking out its tooltip. So as you see here, the station has plus 98% fire rate, plus 20% weapons range, plus 35 tracking, etc, etc. All these bonuses are applied to enemy ships, and so by checking out a single station, you can get a solid idea of what is going on with the enemy fleet. Now this displays only the bonuses experienced by the enemy fleet, and says absolutely nothing about the composition of the ships. And if you have no recon on the enemy fleet, there's actually a way to check it out, just by having contact with the Empire. All I need to know is that the Equine Slaughterers are fanatical purifiers. With this information, I can go ahead to the Help tab, and or just a normal wiki, and check out the AI personalities page. And if you scroll all the way down to fanatic purifiers, you will see some modifiers to their behavior, specifically the hull to armor to shields ratio of their ships, and also their weapons preference. For example, I know that they will spend practically nothing on fortifying their hull, and will focus primarily on shields. This way we can potentially install kinetic weapons on our ships to counter their shields, and install armor to counter their kinetic weapons. This way we'll have a significant advantage over them in case of war, and since they're fanatical purifiers, war is probably coming. This is very handy in situations where you don't have access to enemy borders and have no way of checking out their ships. You can simply go ahead and check out their page, and you'll know a lot more about them than they do about you. Of course, this only works against AI empires, and if you're trying to look up the personality of a player you're facing, good luck to you. In those situations, it's more advisable to have border access and be keeping an eye on their ships. Also, since players are adaptable, keeping a solid eye on their ships is necessary all throughout the war because they can potentially retrofit them and screw you over if you're running a specific ship type. Also, as the last thing, if you see an opening in an enemy empire, it probably means that there is something interesting in that opening. And if you have something like Leviathans or Distant Stars, there's a lot of enemies that can spawn in those places, and those are generally pretty interesting, so I would recommend going for those. And you might even want to consider going to war with a certain empire, just to get access to the systems and check them out. And so I believe that about does it for today's guide. I hope to be making more of these, however I do want to be informed on a subject before making a video on it, since reading out the wiki article on it and reading out event text is kind of boring, and other people can do that. I'll be making informed guides if I can. So thanks for watching. If you enjoyed what you saw, please leave a like and subscribe if you want to see more. I also have a Discord. If any of you guys want to join, you're welcome to do so. And if you have any questions, please leave them down in the comments below, and I'll try to answer as many as I can. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye bye.